Welcome back to the Bite Size Podcast. I'm your host, Lorraine Michaels. And today I have another coach with me, another fantastic human being who is a transformational coach. She loves focusing on bringing out the gold in other people and getting other women to realize their potential. I absolutely love Natalie's mission. She says that her life's purpose is to empower women who feel stuck or without purpose and who are ready to make real lasting transformation, who are ready to unlock the light within themselves so that they can live a life that's aligned and in their true purpose, their true calling, and who want to make that dream life a reality. And if that isn't in complete alignment of what I talk about, what I teach about, then friends, I can't wait for you to hear all of this. So, welcome to the show, Natalie. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you for having me, Lorraine. I'm excited to be here.
So, when I first met you with the six-figure school and in the group that we're in, I was so stoked to connect with you, to learn more about you, to follow you on Instagram back when I had it. I was just so excited because what you're doing is so needed in the world right now. So I can't wait to dive in to hear more about that. But first, I want you to tell us just a little bit about you. How did you get here? Because I'm sure you had like a normal 9 to 5 job, and there had to have been some type of catalyst that got you to this incredible space that you're in right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there were a few different catalysts along the way, and there's one that really stands out for sure. But that may have just been the straw that broke the camel's back.
Right.
um,
Right.
but yeah, so I worked in a corporate 9 to 5 kind of job. I've done that since I was out of college. Started out at Charles Schwab, which was like in their call center. And I remember day one, like getting the job, being so excited, like this is what society is telling me to do. And I remember literally buying like a suit to go on my interview, like all of these things that were just so not me. Like if anyone saw me wearing a suit today, they would probably like fall on the ground laughing because that's just not me. But
Yeah.
anyway, I was so excited. Went to the interview in this suit, got the job, went through the whole training. And my first day on the job, I was like, what is this? I was like in a little cubicle in a call center attached to this headset that was like attached to my desk. So I couldn't even get up and leave because it wasn't wireless. And you
Yeah.
had like a specific 15-minute break at the beginning of your shift, a 30-minute lunch, and a 15-minute break. And I remember this was like 23 years old or something, calling my dad from my lunch break, like in tears. Like,
Oh,
what did I do? Why did
yeah.
I pick this job?
Yeah.
This is all, is this it? This is what people like go to college and graduate for? To like get here to have someone tell you when you can get up and go to the bathroom, like
Mm.
when you're 15 minutes. I felt like I was in prison. So I was like, this is not for me. So
That's when you
I
knew
was
I must be an entrepreneur.
like, this is like not gonna work. Yeah. So 6 months into that job, I left. I found another job, which was a lot more my style. It was small startup environment. So in a startup, it's still somebody else's business, which is fine, but it's a lot more fast paced. Your voice feels like it actually matters. You can make changes pretty quickly. Typically, you have a lot more flexibility because there's not a ton of process yet in a startup. So I really loved that vibe. So then, after I was there for about 4 or 5 years, I went to another startup company where I was the 12th employee. And I ended up there for 9 years, grew it to over 250 employees. And I loved it at the beginning. It felt really fun. And as I started to get more into it, and as I started to follow this path that was like climbing this corporate ladder, quote unquote, it was like I really felt like every time I got a promotion and every time we went through like another growth phase, I'm like, this feels so like there's a misalignment here. And that misalignment just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And
Yeah.
I realized like all of this emotion, for anyone who's worked in a startup, when you're one of the first employees, it's hard not to get emotionally attached.
Hmm.
And so I was like emotionally attached to this job because I felt like, oh, I'm one of the people who started this. I've
Yeah.
been behind this mission. So I put my heart and soul into it. And as we grew and grew and grew, I realized that like they also were not putting their heart and soul into me like I was to them.
Mm. Yeah.
Um, and I just saw that demonstrated like time after time and more as we grew to
Yeah.
the end where I was like, nothing in my job is aligned anymore. People would ask me like, what do you love about your job? And I'm like, I don't really love it. Like
Yeah.
the only thing that I really liked about it as I was growing into like leadership roles
Yeah.
was seeing people on my team accomplish things that they didn't think was possible.
Yeah. So
Um,
at that
that was
time
really
though, at that time,
yeah,
did you know anything about like personal development or personal growth? Like, was there any type of what we know now as this introspection, right, of this misalignment? Did you know then that it was that, or were you just like, something feels off?
such a good question. When I was in it, like in the thick of it, I absolutely had no idea what it was. I totally
Mm,
felt like I felt just depressed. I felt
mm,
like I actually could not pinpoint it. I couldn't put a label on it. I couldn't articulate it. I just
mm,
felt like the feeling that I was getting was like, this is it. This is
yeah,
it. Like
yeah,
this is what you worked so hard for. And
yeah,
I had this little voice in my head that was like, there has to be more. There has
yeah,
to be more. And then the other little voice would be like, nope, this is it. You know, like the
yeah,
conflicting parts of you that you have that are like constantly battling.
yeah.
Um, and then I had two kids, one in 2017 and one in 2019. And the baby that I had in 2017, I was driving into the office, which I live in California in LA, and so traffic is horrendous. So it would take me over an hour to drive 13 miles to work.
Oh my gosh. That is awful.
I would have to get up so early, like at 4 a.m., to get into the office at a reasonable time so that I could leave by 3 to be able to pick up my daughter from daycare
Oh my
at
gosh.
after 4. Then I'd pick her up. It would be like her witching hour, which
Yeah.
anyone who has kids like knows that time of day is like horrendous. So I'd pick her up. She'd be cranky and crying, and then she'd go to bed, and I wouldn't see her until the next day after work. And so
Mm,
it just like totally sucked my soul. And
yeah,
then COVID hit, and it was sort of like a silver lining, even though obviously I would never wish COVID on that time on anyone. But the
yeah,
silver lining was I got to stay at home with both of my kids for an entire year, and life totally slowed down.
yeah,
And I was able to be present and also really analyze my priorities
mhm,
and know my non-negotiables. And my
mm,
non-negotiable was going to the office. And
mm,
that that right there is what sort of was the catalyst. It forced me to realize like, no, I don't have to go into an office. I don't
mhm,
have to do what other people are telling me to do.
yeah,
This can work. I'm actually seeing it work in front of my face.
mm,
Um, and then when the world came out of COVID and people started going back into the office, I just held firm and I was like, no, I'm not doing it.
yeah.
Um, so that was a big catalyst for me.
So what did that look like as far as like, was it an option for you to stay home? Because a lot of people have that feeling and are who may have not been able to put words to it, but now after hearing you, they are like, yes, yes, I have that feeling. Yes, I have those thoughts, but they don't have a backup plan or they don't have anything, you know, in the pipeline. Like, what did that look like for you? How did that? transition from you were at home to now, well, I still need to make an income. What do I do? Because I had no idea I wanted to start a business. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, 100%. So, firstly, at that time, I had no idea I wanted to start a business. Like,
Hmm.
I had no idea that the next step for me was entrepreneurship or
Mm.
even becoming a coach. I actually had no idea what coaching was at the
Hmm.
time.
Yeah.
Um, all I knew at that point was like, this situation is not working for me. And
Hmm.
it's causing, at that point, I had realized like all of the negative impacts that it was causing on other parts of my life.
Mm.
So, because I was misaligned at work and I wasn't happy there, I was starting fights with my husband. I
Mm.
was yelling at my kids when, because my bandwidth felt so small. So
Hmm.
anything like they'd spill a glass of milk and I'm like, oh my God. When
Yeah.
really it's like they just spilled a glass of milk. Like they're like, a couple
Yeah.
years old. That's okay.
Yeah.
So I started realizing that like the behaviors that I was like exhibiting were not behaviors or characteristics that were true to me. It was just this like stress response. And I
Yeah.
wanted out of that.
Yeah.
So, really, what happened at that company was I was in such a place of like low self confidence, and
Yeah.
I didn't really believe in myself to feel like, oh, I can do this. Oh, I can actually leave this company and be okay. So, it took me an insane amount of courage at that time to quit my job
Mm.
and not have anything to fall back on. And I do feel very grateful I was in a position that I could do that,
Yeah.
because I didn't know what was next.
Yeah.
Um, However, doing that forced me to figure it out. And
Yeah.
so, yeah. So the first step I took from there was I did get another job. I was like, let me just give this another go. Maybe it's this company that I wasn't aligned with.
Mm.
It's no longer a startup. Maybe I missed the startup world. So I
Mm.
did go and work at a startup again, and it was okay. It wasn't miserable like I was at my last company, but it
Yeah.
was still like there's something missing here. This is not for me. And then I started to reflect on like when people would ask me that question, what do you love about your job? Like they'd ask me just, out of pure curiosity what I
Yeah.
do for a living and what I enjoy. And I still could not say that I enjoyed it. The only thing that would come to mind was I love really leading my team and seeing them accomplish things that they didn't think that they could accomplish. And then
Mm.
then that's how I was led down this path of coaching. That's a whole
Mm.
nother story that I
Yeah.
realized like, wow, that's actually coaching is helping
Yeah.
people figure out, like see them accomplish things they didn't think they could accomplish before.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
love that. It's so funny because I talk about this in one of my keynotes about how you can kind of see the fingerprints of God throughout your life of leading you to your purpose, your calling, what it is that really lights your soul on fire. And it's so funny because a lot of times we don't even realize it. We just have this unsettling feeling and we can't really put a word to it, or we can't pinpoint it until we really lean into those things that you're passionate about or that you're just naturally good at, or people, come to you for those things. And then when we step into it, or when we get a coach, or we go to an event or something that really like shines the spotlight on it, and it's incredible the transformation that we get to experience when we do it, right? When we do the thing that we're called to do, what we're supposed to do. Talk to me a little bit about that. Like when you realized that it was coaching and you started the business, like your first client, or just that feeling of, yes, this is what I'm called to do. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. Tell me a little bit about that.
That's such a good question. So I'm trying to think. So I think the first calling that I had where I was like, oh my gosh, I know this is it. I was actually walking on the beach one morning by myself, listening to a podcast. And on the podcast, there was a guest speaker that was talking about, like, she runs a coaching academy. So it's Ashley Gordon. She runs Quantum Coaching Academy. And I don't even know why I listened to the podcast episode, but I did. And she was talking about like her coaching academy and what she teaches and all of these things and what her coaches end up becoming and all of the things about coaching. And this was my first real introduction to coaching. And when she was speaking, I was like, she's describing all of the things that I love to do in my job. She's describing like that exact scenario of seeing people on your team accomplish things that they never thought were possible. And I was like, wow, that's coaching. Like that's literally coaching. So that was like the first like light bulb moment for me where I was like, maybe this is actually what I want to do. And the things that I felt like misaligned with, it started to like connect the dots for me. Like when I was
Okay.
like, okay, at work, I feel friction and resistance when my boss asks me to do something and I don't agree with it and I still have to do it because I'm the employee.
Mm,
Um, or, they may have some sort of like philosophical business perspective and I don't agree with it philosophically. Like things like that where I'm like, okay. Or, the other big missing piece for me was at my job, I was feeling like I wasn't really making an impact on people's lives.
yeah.
We used to use this joke like, okay, we can get back to that customer tomorrow. This is not an emergency. We're not saving lives here because it truly was like, that's the truth. And when you think about coaching, like, yes, we're not like saving lives in a 911 emergency room, but like we are transforming people's lives and helping them live such a more fulfilled life.
Mm,
And when I think back to my time of like when I was going through this really depressed phase and I was not happy, it was so bad. I would never want anyone to feel like that. And so my experience getting out of that was life changing and
mm,
transformational.
mm.
Um, like it saved my life, if I want to put
Yeah.
it that way. So I just feel like this is more like aligned in terms of making an impact and also um, that whole coaching element. And so it just was like a light bulb moment when I was listening to that podcast.
Yeah.
Um, and then fast forward to like my first client, which happened actually pretty quickly in. I did not think it was going to happen that quickly. And it was like the universe just giving me signs, like God just giving me signs, like this is for you. This is for
Yeah.
you. You wouldn't have this first if you weren't meant to do this. And
Yeah.
just getting the feedback from clients as I progressed through and like really seeing their transformations. It was just like subtle nods from the
Yeah.
universe and from God being, you're on the right path.
I love
Yeah.
that. I love that because we need that, right? We talked about this on a couple of calls before with Six Figure School about how we need that validation. I mean, and sometimes
Mhm.
we shouldn't focus on that external validation. However, it is very important to acknowledge and be aware of, like you had mentioned, that friction that you felt, but also the flow that happens, that we feel, that we experience when we are doing the thing that we are supposed to do. It feels good. It feels natural. It happens more often the more we do it, right? Like it's like when we're receptive and open to receive the thing that we're supposed to have, it naturally keeps coming to us. I love that. I absolutely
Totally.
love that. So you got into
Yeah.
coaching. Um, talk to me about what I mean, I briefly touched on your mission and what you do, but I really want people to hear like what it is that you help women achieve and do and experience.
Yeah. So my mission with coaching is to help women who are feeling stuck or without purpose in their lives discover that purpose and then pursue anything in their life that makes them feel passionate and fulfilled. So that could be, some of my clients are truly looking to quit their 9 to 5 jobs. They just don't know how to do it. And they don't know, like, they don't trust themselves to take that next step and start their own business. And then I have other clients who love working in the corporate world and that totally lights them up, and that they like to have their career success climbing the corporate ladder and also have time for their families and do other things that fulfill them as well. So it's not that you have to like be someone who wants to quit their 9 to 5. My purpose is to just help women truly figure out what the block is that's preventing them from feeling lit up and finding those things that light them up and then pursuing those things. And we do that, I help them with a few different forms of modalities. I'm certified in neuro linguistic programming, which some
Ooh.
people may have heard like NLP.
Yeah. Go talk a little bit
But
about that. I
basically,
love that.
yeah. So NLP is really cool. It's just basically a way for like myself as a coach to speak to my clients' unconscious or their subconscious selves. So essentially taking any of like those limiting beliefs that you have. And I did not know what a limiting belief was before I got into coaching, believe it or not. So just to explain what that is, it's those things that you tell yourself that are actually not true, but they're so ingrained in you that you believe they're true. So you see this in like a lot of women, successful women who have imposter syndrome, where they're like, I'm not good enough. I'm actually not really good at my job. People just think I am. Or I'm not worthy of having success or being fulfilled, or my voice doesn't matter. Who am I? No one's going to listen. I mean, there are thousands of limiting beliefs. So we get to the root cause of what that is and why we have those. Many times it's from our childhood and just our experience and things that have happened to us in our lifetime. And we crack that open and we rewire it so that you no longer believe that anymore. And when you rewire that limiting belief, it truly unlocks like limitless possibilities for you. So we work through those things in NLP to basically rewire your subconscious.
I love that. I love that. Love that. Love that. I geek out on the brain and the subconscious. I have a whole training on rewiring the subconscious mind. So that's why I'm like, yes, tell me more on that. Um,
Yeah.
that's amazing. I want to know what is one of your like all-time favorite client transformational things, testimonials, or I mean, big or small, just what sticks out to you the most about a change that you got to walk a client through?
So good. They're all so different. I will say, let me think about one. One, so I'll give you a recent one. One was this client I was working with. She's actually a coach herself, and she has been in the coaching space for many years, like I want to say 10 years now. And she had, at the very beginning of her coaching, she was getting into breath work. And so she started to try and get clients and also to like achieve these hours that you need to achieve to get your breathwork certification. She
Right.
started hosting this free online group where she would have people just come participate in a free breathwork class. And she was doing that every week for free, and it would take up like 2.5 to 3 hours by the time she set up, prepared, did the course, wrapped it up, or did the class, wrapped it up, etc. And it was really eating into her time. She was doing this for she ended up doing this for over 4 years for free, like well
Wow.
beyond the point where she absolutely could be making money. And
Yeah.
yeah, like very far along. And she had this limiting belief that she needed that in order to prove to other people that she was like a valid coach, like a legitimate coach, because she still didn't
Wow.
believe in herself, like literally 10
Oh,
years into her coaching career, that she was a good coach.
yeah.
So that was one example of in her life that she was like actually embodying this behavior of like, I don't believe in myself, so I'm going to host this for free.
Mm.
While it's not even about the doing things for free, it was just that she didn't have the time to actually host this anymore. But she was still doing it, even though she knew very well that it wasn't something she could fulfill.
Wow.
So she was doing that, and then we worked through many different limiting beliefs. One was the I'm not a good enough coach, and the other one was I'm going to let people down and they're not going to like me if I cancel this, going
Wow.
forward. So
Yeah.
we worked through those and rewired those with a number of different tools, and she came out of it with a really solid plan. And now, fast forward, she no longer has that group. And she's actually taken some people from that group and converted them into paying clients, which she's now helping transform their lives well beyond breath work. So it ended up being like a win win situation because her clients in that group actually needed more support
Yeah.
um, with in their life, and she was able to help them do that through canceling this class and like
Yeah.
working through her own beliefs. So yeah, that was a
Wow.
recent one that I just thought was pretty cool.
That's awesome. I love that. That was like multifaceted of transformation and
Yeah,
breakthrough. Like that is so awesome. I
yeah,
love that.
yeah.
So,
And honestly, most transformations are multifaceted because we are just as humans like
mhm.
multifaceted.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. I used to, I mean, this is kind of on topic, but off topic. I heard a video just recently about how, relationships take intention and they take work, and there's different seasons of relationships, and not just romantic relationships, just all relationships, right? And how you hear a lot when there is a rough season in a relationship. Someone says, well, you've changed, but that's not a negative thing. Like, we should be changing because we are multifaceted and we're ever evolving, right? Because if we're not changing, then something's wrong. But it's just a
Totally.
matter of how you look at it and what are those limiting beliefs that you might hold in regards to change or
Mm-hmm.
like evolving as a person. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know why that was for somebody,
Yeah.
but anyways. Evolving is fine, change is good.
Yeah.
Um, Um,
Oop,
is
I
there
think it may
something
have
that
broke up
you're
there for a
working
second.
on right now as far as a new course, new type of coaching? What is new and exciting coming out in Natalie's world?
Yeah. Can you hear me okay? I'm sorry. I think it broke up for a second.
I think there was a little bit
Okay,
of lag
perfect.
time.
Okay, all good. Um, yeah, so something I'm really excited to start talking about is this group program that I'm putting together, which is all about meeting and embodying your future self.
Ooh.
So, yeah. And I know future self is like this big buzzword, I feel like that's been thrown around and everything like that. And there are actually quite a few really good books on it that I've read. But the whole sort of like background behind why I'm doing this is because when I reflect back on the parts of my life where I was really in a bad place, like mentally thinking about like, oh, I'm in this miserable job and like really playing like that, having that victim mindset and feeling really
Mm,
powerless. Um, the way that I was able to really get myself out of that funk or that stuckness feeling was really thinking about like, what do I want my life to look like? What do I want my life to look like? And actually, who do I need to be in order to get that life?
mm,
And so when I really started to dive deep and do the reflection on like, who did I want to be or who do I need to be to have that life? I started making decisions as that person. And that's not something that's like actually really easy to do
mm,
because we only know who we are today. We don't
mhm,
know who we are as people in the future. We
mhm,
can guess and think like these are the things that this person would likely do. Um, so it was a blend of like making decisions from this place where I thought this person, my future self, would be, and trusting that in my intuition. So it was a balance of really learning how to trust myself, how to hear my intuition and listen to it, and how to make decisions as that future version of me. And as soon as I started doing that, and the more that I started to embody it and like really truly be this future version of me, things started clicking into place. And it is like wild how much your life can change in just a short amount of time when you start doing that. So yeah, starting in I'll be offering a masterclass the end of this year that's about meeting your future self. And then the next step would be this group program. It's going to be a 6-week group program where you'll learn how to like actually take the actions that your future self does and embody that so that at the end of 6 weeks, you're truly like on this fast track to living that future life.
I love that. That is so important. Um, Gosh, so much of that I absolutely love because we get to a point. I mean, you do or you don't. You don't get to that point and you just live your life miserably, or you realize something doesn't feel right and you ask yourself like, what do I want? What type of life do I want? What does my future look like if I continue down this path, or if I, make a change and I want to do XYZ or whatever. But that
Mm-hmm.
whole envisioning and embodying your future self is so important, and it takes intentionality. Like, you're going to have to do things that are so weird and maybe woo woo that you're not used to doing, but it takes that, I mentioned it earlier, that introspection and asking those questions and journaling and writing it out, like, so you can read it, see it, speak it,
Mm-hmm.
of what is the life that I want to have. Okay, now
Mm-hmm.
what is it going to take to get there? And something that I
Mm-hmm.
do, um, I used to do more often, and I need to start doing it again, is asking myself, having that on the forefront of my mind, of asking myself, if I do this, is this going to get me closer to the life that I want? Or is this falling back into old patterns, old behaviors? And just having that in the forefront of your mind,
Yeah.
is this going to get me closer to the life that I want?
Yeah.
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 I don't know
Absolutely.
what. Mm.
Sorry, I was going to say, I wholeheartedly believe in that. I mean, it's a mindset thing, but the more that you work on your mind and your mindset about those things, and you really are making decisions with that intentionality in mind, the more you actually start to embody it. And then right before your eyes, you're that new person. It's
Yeah.
really, it's crazy when you think about it, but it's so true.
Yeah, it is. I hate the saying fake it till you make it. Just because you're not faking it. Like, you really have to, like you keep saying, you really have to embody that. You really have to know it, feel it, be it, breathe it, like everything about it. I think I was listening to, it was a podcast with Rob Deerdick, I think. But and this I talk about this also in how you reprogram your subconscious mind, about envisioning that life that you want, but like taking, not just thinking about it, taking it to a whole nother level of feeling it. I want to,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to make it personal, I want to have land, like a lot of land at one point, and animals, and just like walking through a day in that life, closing your eyes and envisioning it. Like, what does it feel like? What time am I waking up? What am I smelling? Am I drinking coffee? Am I walking on the porch? Like, literally walk through that life that you want and feel it in your body, and like map out, think about every single detail and feel what it feels like in your body, because your mind doesn't know between reality and fantasy. So if you're fantasizing of that life that you want, you're programming your subconscious mind that that is going to happen. And your brain is naturally going to look for ways to make it happen.
Yes, 100%. I wholeheartedly believe in that. Firstly, that's amazing that you want land and animals. I love that.
I do.
That's so cool.
It'll happen.
And it will happen. And what I keep thinking about when you were saying that, the example that kept coming to mind was like when I stepped into being a coach. So because it was such a drastic like career change in my life, I went from being an employee of a company to being an owner and a founder of a company. It's a very different shift. Not to
Mhm.
mention, I've never done this before. I've never had an online business before. I've never truly been a coach before, even though I was like a coach in other capacities. Um, and so when I started to like embody that persona, like it took me a while to tell, like people would ask me, what do you do for a living? And I'd be like, oh, I work at a tech startup. Like, meanwhile, I'm doing this coaching thing over here, but I never said anything about it. Not until I started like owning that and being
Mm.
like, people would ask me now, what do you do for a living? I'm like, oh, I'm a transformation and mindset coach. And then like that other part of my life came second. And so it's
Mm.
really embodying it and doing the things that whatever it is that you want to be or whatever it is that you want your life to be like, that you're actually doing it. So
Mm.
whether that's looking at properties with land, whenever there's like an open house for land, or going and visiting animals, or whatever it is, like if you want to move into a specific neighborhood, like here, for example, in California, there's like a neighborhood that I really wanted to live in. So I would just go for my morning runs there. I would drive to that neighborhood and go for my morning runs there. And then it turns out like we ended up moving into the neighborhood.
Yeah.
So it just is like surrounding yourself and doing the things that that person would be doing. And
Yes.
it ends up working out because you're doing those things and you're also telling the universe, like, I'm ready for this. This is what I
Yeah.
want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Touching the dream. That's what I like to say, touching the dream. Figure
Yes.
out how can you touch the dream. Whatever it is, just like you said, like if it's that neighborhood, going to the neighborhood, if it's, that house, going to open houses of like just touching the dream, whatever that looks like, cuz you're signaling to your brain like this is a reality. We can do this.
Yeah.
This can happen. And next thing you know, it happens. Like it's so freaking incredible. I love it. I get so jazzed about it. It's so fun.
Same. I love that. Touch the dream. That's so cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I am so excited for you, Natalie. What's coming up? I want to make sure that we get the details of the master class so we can put that in the show notes and how to get in touch
Okay.
with you. What's the easiest, best way? Social media, email, website? What is it?
Yeah, there's a few ways you can reach me. I would say the easiest is probably Instagram. So I'm on Instagram at the Light Within Collective. And on my Instagram, there's like the link to my website. All of my
Perfect.
handles on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, everything is at the Light Within Collective.
Wonderful.
And yeah, I'll be posting details about the masterclass. It's a free masterclass. You'll get a ton of value out of it just from the 60-minute masterclass. It'll give you lots of tools and tips to learn about what we just talked about today, about how to like meet that person, meet your future
Yeah.
self. Because when I was going through my journey, reflecting back, I actually like feel like I didn't know my future self. So it took me like actually sitting down and reflecting and using certain tools to be able to find out and discover who that version of me was that I wanted to be. So
Mm.
that's what this masterclass will help you do. If you're feeling lost or stuck and you're just like, I don't know what to do. I just know I feel stuck or lost.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so I'll be posting about that, but the masterclass will go live end of November. So just keep an eye out on Instagram and you'll see the dates where you can register and sign up.
Good deal. I love it. Well, thank you
Yeah.
so much for being here and sharing your story and your wisdom and everything that you're bringing to the world and how you are helping other women through this amazing transformation. I'm so excited for you and what you're bringing. So, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. This was so fun and I appreciate you.
All right, guys. Well, if this episode has helped you in any way, if it has been transformational, let us know. Drop it in the comments, tag us, message us, and share it. And always remember, guys, you were divinely created for a divine purpose, and there was no mistake in you. Catch you on the next episode.